Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing out there? It's your man, NIC.
What's up, everybody? It is your first lady, Miss Bernadine Truth.
What's going on, everyone? We're back for another episode of TUC 2.0. So, of course, we have a special guest for you later on tonight that's going to talk. We want to kind of go away from this whole COVID-19 talk and everything. So, switch it up a little bit. Oh, have a little bit of COVID-19, but not the main focus tonight. So, Bernadine, how's everything with you since this past week?
This past week has been good. I don't know. I feel like I have moments where I'm like, okay, like I can get through this. Like, this is cool. Another week, another day. And then I have other moments where I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. I don't know what's going on. And then I have other moments where I'm like, I just need to leave this house. And then I'm like, why are people outside? People aren't practicing social distancing. So I feel like I have these like internal battles with myself in conversations. But it's good, and I feel like it's even like impacting like my roommates, my family. Like we're all like, no, this is good for balance. Like we need to stay away, and then we're like, but this is crazy. I can't wait for us to get out. And then we're like, if we're here for too long, then we're not staying here at all. Like you just fluctuate. But I will say, like, social media has been keeping me going during these times. So how about you? And I see how you
doing better. I'm getting accustomed to just staying in. That first week or two, I think I was looking for every excuse to go out, like all the time. But now it's gotten much better. I'm not going out or looking for stupid excuses to go outside anymore because I've seen like it's getting worse and worse and worse. So
but what quantifies stupid excuses for you though? Because I'm sitting here like it's not a stupid excuse to go for a walk. It's not a stupid excuse to go for
I'm not talking about going for a walk. I'll be like, oh, I need to go like to the store to go buy like one thing.
But that one thing is important.
No, it wasn't. It was just I just wanted
to. Well, you could send me. I'm kidding. I don't.
Dude, I would do the days. I'll make like 3 trips when I know, like, oh yeah, I forgot this. Oh, let me go back and get it.
Smells like B is itching. You already know. I can't do forever. But what I will say, what keeps me grounded is knowing that it's for a bigger cause. You know what I mean? Like it's bigger than me. And so I need to stay my behind at home because one, I don't want to actually catch this virus, and I don't want to be bedridden.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I don't want to expose anybody else to something too, because if I am asymptomatic, then, I could possibly give that to someone. And so it's that fine balance between the two. I've had to see my family for a little bit and just like stop by and either drop something off for them or they drop something off to me. And it's funny because I'm in my little bubble with my family, with my my cousins and I who live together here. And so when I have to leave the house to go elsewhere, I'm like, what do you have? Like, are you exposing me to something? And I just feel like I'm extremely paranoid, but it's all good. And then you're around people, right? And you're just like, oh, like I'm fine, I'm healthy. And then you hear somebody sneeze or cough, and then you're like, oh, maybe I'm sick, and maybe this is something bigger than it really is. So, it's just, again, it's just a lot to balance. It's a lot to balance.
It is. It's crazy. It's put like a fear in people that I'm hoping changes. What is he talking about? Talking about ice cream is important too. I don't know what he's talking about.
Who knows? He knows what his needs are. So
but yeah,
don't talk about me and my needs. But we gotta get into the week that was as well. Just talk about what's been going on in the world since the last time we were on air. I wanted to, as Anasi mentioned, we are going to try to do as much of a traditional podcast as possible too, and not always talk about COVID-19, even though we recognize how prevalent it is to our existence and our well-being right now. But we do also want to talk about other things that are going on in the world, right? Because that is also very important as far as like life balance. So with that being said, though, we still want to highlight a couple of things as far as COVID-19 in Boston, or Massachusetts. So an update for us as of today, 1,365 new cases have actually come up, and nearly 96 newly reported deaths have been shared with regards to COVID-19. So again, for those of you who are thinking that this is still not real and it's not impacting everyone, in our state alone, the numbers are pretty high. And in our city, in the city of Boston, the numbers are drastically high. So we gotta take care of ourselves and stop spreading it.
One of the things also that's come out of this whole pandemic is something that I was suspecting would happen. I was hoping it wouldn't happen. But today, as numbers, because it's been almost a month now. It's literally about to be a month since a lot of people have been in, and the COVID-19 has been spreading all over. So,
Right.
from the numbers from Chicago, from New Orleans, and a couple other cities around Detroit,
Yep.
so around the U.S., one of the studies that
Milwaukee.
they've seen is that a majority of the people that are being affected by this are African Americans. So
Yep.
just to read you a little bit of stats real quick, you can go check out the article. It's on CNN. But the Louisiana governor said that out of the 512 deaths so far, 70%, I want to repeat that, 70% of the deaths were African American patients. And they only make up 32% of the population in the state. Chicago, same thing. 72% of the deaths happen in that city where African American. The reason why you're asking, oh, why is this happening? What's causing this issue? Is the main reason is hereditary. Unfortunately, us Black people, it's been passed along for generations now. You have high blood pressure, diabetes. You have a lot of these people that are being affected by this. And these underlying conditions that we don't take serious, because to us, high blood pressure, diabetes, it's another
Asthma.
thing. It's like asthma. It's like, oh, this is just something I know. It's part of my family, something I'm just dealing with. It's not a big deal at all, but this is a big deal.
Right.
A lot of us are being affected, people. So this is why we keep saying to practice social distancing, stay safe, be healthy, stay home if you don't need to. A lot of these services out there, you can order stuff, you can have stuff dropped off to you. Even when it's dropped off to you, clean it, make sure you're being good, make sure you are staying away, make sure you're not going out in Publix. And the mayor, Boston, thank you, has set a curfew, and I'm happy. I wish it was even earlier, but it's from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to 6
9
a.m.
p.m.
So non-essentials, don't be in the streets, don't be going around just to drive around.
We have to really regulate. I'd also say in support of the stats that you mentioned, a couple of articles have also shared to break that stigma, stating that this is not something that's impacting the Black and brown population, is to also recognize that working from home is a privilege. And a lot of people who identify as people of color too, you still are seeing results of systemic racism play out, because they're the ones that have to go to work, even if they're not necessarily nurses or doctors, but they're in professions that require them to go to work in order to make money. And then you're also watching a lot of people go to food pantries and shelters, etc. And so during the days, you're really constantly exposing yourself. And so treatment's also not as accessible to folks. And so it's really recognizing that, you know, as we said in the very beginning too, and as many professionals have shared, that those who are historically marginalized typically lose in any type of difficult situation. And so again, in the very beginning, right, we weren't looking at these numbers being greatly reflected in the historically marginalized population. And now it's actually taken a turn, because again, when you talk about equity, you talk about economic disparities, this is what we're looking at. So again, keep in mind that even if you're out there and you want to socialize, and that's why you want to go take your walks and you want to be out and about in the city, right, you need to really be careful about who you're impacting and who you're exposing. And the city of Boston, a lot of our neighborhoods like Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury have some of the highest cases. And again, when we talk about economics, those are part of the communities that have are on the lower spectrum of socioeconomic statuses. And so again, thinking about all of you who are impacted in this, Boston, we got to come together and we have to protect everyone.
Yeah, our communities, we need to protect everyone. And like you were saying, just to add a point to that, is a lot of the African American community, they're doing certain jobs where they have to keep working. You know, they don't have guaranteed pay, they don't have guaranteed sick leave. So these people are putting their lives at risk because they need a paycheck. They need to be able to pay their bills. Like you said, they don't have that luxury. And it's something that I'm very sad to hear and very sad to read about. But it's real. It's facts. Numbers do not lie. And we need to try and do better, y'all. Try and do better.
But, you know, I think that, sorry, what'd you say?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was just like, you know, and it is tough, but in that same breath, right, we do also need to have a life balance element of things. And so it's like taking into the consideration all of these stats and all of these, like this news that is very sad and detrimental and just like difficult to take in, but then also know that there are other things going on that can in fact lift our spirits. And so on that note, I'll transition into pop culture and talk about some of the things that have been taking place that are a little bit more lighthearted. And I know you want to talk about this rap battle.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. So I don't know if everybody out there knows, but Timbaland and Swizz Beatz has started this whole versus, which is it's not a rap battle. It's a beat battle or artist versus artist, producer versus producer battle. The whole point, something they used to do for fun versus each other. This started last year actually, and with everybody being in house, they did it. A lot of people tuned in. And now they're like, hey, there's a lot of other people we would want to see battle. So they've been doing these different battles. The last battle we had was this past Saturday. Perfect. I grew up. I'm an early 2000 college baby. So they had T-Pain versus Lil Jon. If you went in college, you was at that age clubbing during the early 2000s, mid 2000s. T-Pain and Lil Jon had almost every top 10 hit almost every month. I went so crazy. I actually made myself a drink. I broadcasted it and played it on speakers in my house, and I turned on the lights. I have like the smart lights, so I turned on the smart lights. I had the club bouncing. Yo, I was gigging. Songs came on. I can't say some of the songs because I don't want copyright or anything like that. But Lil Jon had some gems, Knuck If You Buck, all those type of joints. T-Pain had. Yo, they were going in. They were going in. So all those songs were playing, and it was fun. It was very entertaining. Everybody, they had about 280,000 people watching this. This was held this past Saturday. There's supposed to be another one that's happening. They're going to do it at least weekly now. They're trying to do another one, I think, with Babyface, and I forgot who the other artist might be, to be a little bit more R&B centric or everything like that. But it's been amazing. It's another way. A lot of people are coming on there. People are talking through live, talking about it on Twitter. I had Elliot Wilson that was retweeting me, which was great. Shout out to you, Elliot Wilson from Tidal and everything like that. So this was fun. It was a way, like, I haven't partied and enjoyed myself in so long. It was good to just basically forget about everything that was happening, grab me a drink, and enjoy myself. And I had a blast. And a lot of other people were saying they had a blast. I broadcasted as much as I could out there, but I was enjoying myself. So I didn't get to do it as much, but it was fun. Like the next one, Bernadine, whenever they have it, I'm going to invite you to it because you'll probably definitely love it.
We'll see. I mean, I will say I've enjoyed some of these like live mainstreams. Like I remember when, oh my gosh, D-Nice was out there and he was playing tunes and battles. And I think a lot of like local DJs are now playing a lot of music too, like DJ Big Bear, Real P. Like, I mean, people are really trying to do what they do and take it virtually, which is awesome. So I definitely tune in. Should my schedule allow, because now that there are all these virtual activities taking place, I'll be showing up. So my challenge is double booking is happening on the virtual end. But, I definitely want to support. I'd also add that for those of you who love Insecure and are supporters of my girl Issa Rae, Insecure is coming back April 12th, y'all. That is in a few days, depending on when you're watching this. And I cannot wait. I can't wait. It was over a year since the last time she aired a show. So the season 3's finale aired back in 2018, right? So we're looking at like almost 2
years.
But just shy of 2 years. And so I'm just excited to really be back in that show, to talk about whatever awkward moments we're experiencing in life, to really discuss some of our challenges as people, to have a lot of fun as people, and just to laugh with Issa. Like, seriously, I emulate some of her funny characters ways. When I'm like prepping myself and I'm like, Brenton, you gotta get your head in the game. I'm like rapping to myself in the bathroom or in my room. Like in those, and I don't know, I think about like how she started her whole career with Diary of an Awkward Black Girl and these experiences. So I'm really happy to see that another season's taking place. She's taking some time off in order to focus on other projects. She was on the big screen, in a couple of other movies too. The most recent was in February for Valentine's Day with The Photograph. And so
I asked you about that. Did you like that movie?
I didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it?
I haven't watched it yet. No.
Once you
I'll
get a chance, watch it and we'll discuss it. I don't want my opinion to influence you. Sometimes I have to tell you.
It wouldn't.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I didn't like it. And I was like,
but I actually heard a lot of that. Like I heard people were just kind of like, like they weren't
chemistry. It felt like they didn't have a chemistry like throughout the movie.
Too much, too quick, or just they didn't loop things in well. I don't know. Like I've heard different types of feedback.
Yeah, the storyline and the chemistry didn't go that well. So I was like so happy for the movie. I wanted to watch it. Purchase my tickets, was ready to go, and then both of us
were a fan. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I mean, hopefully Insecure's is back and like better, because I actually felt like I was a fan of season 1 and 2. With season 3, I was just kind of like a little indifferent about the season as a whole. And so I'm really hoping that year and a half to 2 years of time off screen has really contributed to like a plot that will continue to evolve. Like, her and Molly are about to be back on the screen together. I want to know what's up with Lawrence. That's my dude. I'm like, I'll be feeling for him, and then I'm not feeling for him. What'd you say?
I hope the season is long too. Because they be having like these 8-episode seasons. Yes. Like, hey, you've been off for 2 years.
The first season of Insecure was so quick. The third season of Insecure was so quick that I didn't even realize it was the full season. Like when it was like season finale, I was just like, wait, did I miss something? Yep. I'm so serious. I had to go back. Like, did I like miss a couple of episodes? Like, when was this happening? So I don't know. We'll see. But Issa, go out there, do your thing. You are appreciated, but I'm like, I don't know. What have you been watching like to keep yourself occupied during this time of the pandemic?
I tried to watch the Tiger King, whatever. I couldn't. It's just not my thing.
Really?
Yeah, I watched like one episode and I was just like, yeah, I'm not into this. So I've been watching some of my other shows that I've caught up with, some sci-fi shows and some other shows on Netflix. Right now I'm about to I forgot what's this show on HBO. I always forget the name of these shows like after I watch them. Homeland, I've been waiting for it to come up so that I can watch it. So Homeland's my next show that I'm about to watch and binge watch. But I've been mainly just catching up to DVR stuff. There's some Netflix shows I'm holding out on before I watch them. I've watched movies, actually. I watch a lot more movies. Downloaded movies, watch movies and shows. What about you? What are some of your top shows you've been watching?
So I still am very much like myself before the pandemic. So I'm trying to launch this term, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So pre-pandemic, I wasn't much of a
we know.
TV
person. Party all the damn time, or out all the damn time.
I don't know why y'all say these things because I definitely don't party. I really go to a lot. No, I was out a lot in the community because there are a lot of other events. And it's funny because I'm like, no, but that's not partying. People think because a lot of black people are together.
Like, out all the time.
No, you said I was partying all the time first.
And then I changed it. You didn't hear that part. See, you were so focused on trying to.
You're so used to saying all I do is party, and I'm like, but I don't. I don't become one of those people who think just because like more than 5 black people are together, it's a party. We do other things. We do other things anyway. Don't let me come for you, okay? I'm gonna come for you like this. But I'm still not really watching a lot of. I'm still really not watching a lot of TV or anything like that. I thought I would be because I'm like, oh, let me like catch up. But I'm also very like old school, old soul type of thing. So I've actually been binge watching A Different World. That's been great. I love it. A Different World. Yeah, it came out in the late 1980s. And it's like a show about college students and just like different life dynamics and experiences that they go through, relationships, friendships, school, GPAs, professional careers. I don't even know, like just life in general. So it was nice to see what shows used to look like before my time, if you will. The season started before I was born, and to still see a lot of actors and actresses who we see on the big screens today. So that was nice. And then that's been nice. And then I also like had binge watched a while ago, Living Single. So like I really like that show. So I don't know. I'm like on my old school black shows, I'll be watching it. Occasionally I put on Family Matters because I'm like, oh, were there episodes I missed? Really? Like growing up, because I'm like, these were all shows that were on TV as a young person, and I really enjoyed them, but I didn't necessarily feel like I always understood them. And so now I'm like, oh, let me see, like what I missed, if I missed anything at all. Like, I'm trying to think. I watched Will Smith's first movie too, 6 Degrees of Separation.
Oh,
I've never watched it. I've always heard of it. Yeah. Oh, wow. So I watched that for the first time, which was also interesting because I was like, okay, Will in like his first major film.
It was a very big role. Like,
yeah,
they didn't play that role, so it was very good for him. That's why he took it. He said. So.
It was cool. It was cool. So like being able to watch him do that, I was just kind of like, okay, like he really just jumped right into the world. Like and I'm like, this movie is kind of weird and kind of interesting. And I'm just like, I don't know. It was cool.
Well, as always, it was great catching up and talking to you about everything that's been happening this past week. As you know, the Urban Collectives, we always like to have a guest on, and we're going to be bringing our celebrity guest for this evening. We are going to be adding them to the stream. Just give us a second. Can you see us? Hello.
Hey guys, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. All right. Yeah. So I'm really excited. Celebrity guest is like one of our favorite aspects of our show here. So I'm just going to quickly introduce everyone to who you are, Alexander, and then just ask you to take it away. Cool?
Sure.
All right. So Alexander Hernandez received his bachelor's degree of arts and communication with a minor in environmental studies from the Robert J. Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences at Boston College in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. He is a marketing and communications professional with proven business and communication skills, writing acumen, and he possesses exceptional organizational project management and integrated marketing and brand development skills as well. Additionally, Alexander, also known as AJ, is a freelance social media and strategic communications consultant. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen of the collective, AJ, say hello to the people.
Hello, say hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. But feel free to call me AJ. My name is Alexander, but I've always gone by AJ. I'll respond to Alexander, so if you slip up and say Alexander, I'll know who you're talking to, but AJ it is.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, AJ, for being here. We're really excited to talk about, you and running the marathon and all of that. So the marathon, as we all know, too, was postponed because of this pandemic that we're in with COVID-19, but still talking to you about what that experience has been like for you to train and like hearing maybe like it's not even happening or really is delayed, and just learn about like what it takes to be a marathon runner and all of that. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Awesome. And I see.
So AJ, I wanted to kind of go back with you a little bit. So what made you start running and become interested in running? Was it something in high school? Was it something you developed later in your adult life?
So I started running, like organized running, probably in middle school. I played sports my entire life. So my parents put me like in baseball and soccer as soon as I could walk. So I grew up playing sports. I grew up being pretty active. And naturally fitness just kind of came with the territory, right? Just like trying to be very stayed in shape. As I moved, like I said, into middle school, I joined the school's cross country team. I actually found out that I was a pretty decent distance runner. If you can't see me right now, but I'm not built like a distance runner by any means. I kind of have those like tree trunk thighs, if you will. And so if you look at a lot of the guys who are running marathons, they're like really thin, like super lean. I definitely don't have that build, but I think I'm a pretty decent runner. I'm by no means going to win the marathon, but I'm a pretty decent runner, I think. In general. So from there, I went into high school, and during the off season from soccer, we had to pick a sport or something to make sure we were staying in shape. So I picked track. So I continued running. Running was just like a normal part of my soccer fitness in high school. I played on a club team and a high school team. So I was like, again, always running, like always staying in shape. And then when I moved to Boston from Southern California, which is where I grew up, I went to Boston College, and mile 20, can't get this wrong now, mile 21 is right at Boston College's campus. And so throughout my 4 years there, it was something that I look forward to every year. And I kind of thought, you know what, maybe I'll get back into running. I'll run the Boston Marathon one of these years, and kind of kept putting it off. And then 2013 happened and the bombings took place. And I kind of decided, after watching how the entire city came together and how the people who ran the race and then came back the next year did so with such like perseverance and strength, I was kind of inspired. And that was the moment when I said, you know what, like, I'm going to make this happen. That was kind of a turning point, Marie, where I decided this is going to be something that I make a reality as soon as I can. And so I didn't actually run. This is not my first marathon. This is my first Boston Marathon, but it won't be my first marathon.
Okay.
So fast forward a couple of years after graduation in 2015, it is the summer of 2018, and I am actually watching. I'm a huge reality TV fan. So I was someone I was watching on TV on one of my reality TV shows ran the New York Marathon, and I was like, if she can do it, I can definitely do it. So like the next day I signed up for the New York City Marathon.
Oh, wow.
And started training a couple months later. It was absolutely one of the coolest things I've ever done. Definitely the hardest thing I've ever done physically and probably mentally too. I think people think there's like just a physical component to running a marathon, but there's definitely a mental piece. And yeah, that was 2018. Ran with a charity, and then whenever registration opened up for Boston, I just thought, you know what, I don't have any reason not to do it. I have one marathon under my belt. I kind of know what to expect from like a training standpoint, so I'm just going to go for it. And so here we are.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that journey, even from like literally the time you were just able to walk, right? And your parents being like, go play sport, be athletic, and then boom. And then it became something where you had to like maintain like your weight, and you're like, listen, I'm going to keep doing this and running. And then having done it in New York and now here, which is like the rival city at that. So tell us, like, why did you pick Boston as the next one though? Because you could have been anywhere.
Yeah, so like I think I said, I grew up in Southern California, lived there my whole life. Moved here when I started college. So I think Boston in many ways has become home to me. I mean, I've lived here now 9 years. It'll be, I think, 10. I moved here in 2011. So next summer 2021 will be 10 years since I moved here. When I first moved to Boston, though, for school, there was like the first couple months I was unsure. I didn't know if I felt super comfortable here, if this is where I was supposed to be. But then after going home for the holidays and then coming back, I fell into my groove. And like I said, over the last 9 or so years, Boston has really, really become I don't see myself really leaving anytime soon. And like I said, the marathon was a very big part of my college experience. So it's something that I look forward to every year. And I think it's just a really cool example of like what Boston is and what Boston stands for. It's a day when people like really all over the state, right? It starts out 26 miles west of Boston, but all over the state kind of come out, line the marathon route, make like wave signs, cheer for people that don't even know, but just kind of really get into it. I think people in Boston are very proud to be from Boston. And the marathon is a good excuse for them to go out and show their Boston pride. Yeah. And then, like I said, once 2013 happened, it kind of made the marathon that much more meaningful, I think, for everyone in Boston, especially how everyone came together. Like
I'd say even around the world, like it just brought so many people together to watch like what just happened at the finish line here.
Yeah. And then that's totally exactly. Like I remember seeing like, I think it was the Yankees played like Sweet Caroline or something right afterward. And like just like seeing how kind of everyone came together in the wake of this tragedy, that it was like, I have to run Boston someday. And so, yeah. And then I think like New York, to be honest, I think I chose New York first because it's a little easier to get into the New York Marathon. So I'm not a qualified runner. So I didn't qualify with a time. I run for somebody. And so New York's a little less competitive, even from a charity standpoint, to get a charity bib. And I didn't have to train for my first marathon in the middle of the winter, which I thought was a huge plus.
That's so good. When you talk about charity, what do you mean by like literally a charity organization or charity is sponsorship?
Yep. So I think probably most of like the major world marathons, I know definitely like Chicago, New York, and Boston all have a certain number of charity bibs that are allocated. So there are a couple different ways you can get in. To a marathon, you can qualify for time, which for my age group, I think is like 3 hours or less. I ran New York in just over 4. And so I was like, there's no way I'm going to shave off an hour off my time to qualify for Boston. Excuse me. Another way you can get in is through a lottery. So you just put your name in, and if you get lucky, you get to run, kind of no strings attached. And then the third option, which is a pretty popular one for Boston because it's so competitive and so many people want to run, is you can run as a member of an official charities team. And so the Boston partners with John Hancock, and John Hancock has a number of official John Hancock charities. And then there are a number of smaller charities, both local and kind of international or national, that you can be a part of. And the agreement is that you will raise X amount of money throughout your training and like raising awareness for the organization. And that's kind of your ticket into running the marathon.
Gotcha.
Well, that's very interesting. So one thing I did wanted to ask is, for anybody that's someone that's running the marathon for the first time, if they don't have a charity or they've never run before, how would they qualify to just run into the marathon, especially the Boston Marathon?
So I can't speak from personal experience on the qualifying front from like qualifying for time. But what I have read stories of people who run one marathon, like their first marathon, and they're so far from the qualifying time, and then just spend years and years and years training, like following strict training regimens, both like running and I think probably weight training, whatever it is, like staying to a pretty strict training regimen, and they end up however many years later running like a qualifying time. But like I said, I can't speak from experience there. As far as getting in with a charity, for Boston, and it was the same for New York, like I said, you can go onto the Boston Athletic Association website when registration opens and look at the participating charities, and each charity has an application that you can fill out, and they ask questions like, have you run other marathons before? What's your fundraising experience? Can you tell us a little bit about how you plan to raise this much money? And then kind of similar to like college applications, they have they have a committee who will read all the applications that come in. They'll call you for a phone interview if they want to talk to you.
Wow.
It's pretty intense process.
Run.
Like
to run for fun.
Exactly. That's what everyone's like. So you're telling me you basically went through a mini college application process.
Exactly.
Want to run 26 miles for fun.
For fun, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. That's commitment.
Yeah.
What is the I'm sorry, and I'm sure you mentioned, I know you said that New York, like their qualifying hours were about like 3 hours, or you said Boston's is 3 hours?
Yeah, so Boston's is 3 hours. For my age group, so I'm 27. I don't know exactly what the range is, but it kind of, so there's a different qualifying time for every age group. Like as the potential runners or candidates for running get older, their qualifying time gets a little bit, or increases a little bit more.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Like relative to your age, right? So I know, like I said, I know for Boston, it would have been 3 hours or less for me. But I'm not sure what it is for other age groups. But the people who win, I mean, they run like 2 hours, you know what I mean? They run a marathon like 2 hours.
So many miles in such a short time.
Yeah. So
yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that too. So earlier too, you mentioned like you were happy that you could qualify for New York because like you didn't have to train necessarily like in the winter time to do it.
Yeah.
What should people consider and do when deciding to train for a marathon or like train for the Boston Marathon, for example? Like what?
Yeah, I think you want to look at, what your fitness level and kind of your, I guess, running experience. So like if you are a beginner runner, say you've never run a day in your life, but you decide you want to run a marathon, There will be different like training plans, quote unquote, you should follow versus someone who is a more advanced runner who maybe runs like 4 or 5 marathons a year. I know for Boston and for New York, the organizations that actually put on the marathon provide training plans. So if you go onto like the Boston Athletic Association website, you can actually download marathon training plans for, I think, beginner, intermediate, and advanced runners. That said, a lot of people will join like local running clubs. So I think like Heartbreak Hill Running Company, the running store in Boston, they have a running club that runs out of their store like a couple times a week. So joining a running club is like a good way to hold yourself accountable, especially for those long runs when you're getting up to like 18, 20, 22 miles in a day. It can be pretty tough to like get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to make sure you get there for a 7:30 kind of start time on a Saturday when you like, I don't know about you, but I like to sleep in on my Saturday. When you have other like 20, 25, 30 other people that are going to be there. And then if you don't show up, they're going to be calling you or blowing up your phone being like, where are you?
Where are you?
I like that.
So that's definitely something to take into consideration is like I said, your experience level, like how do you consider yourself a runner in terms of like, is this your, have you never run before, or is this something, do you like log 20 miles a week just for fun?
Right.
And so that's definitely one thing to take into consideration. I think, a lot of people, I know a lot of the elite runners, I think, will maybe like change up their diet a little bit depending on like what their goals are and not just the elite runners, right? Like a lot of people will do it. I would be lying if I told you I was being super strict and like, I like my snacks. I like to eat. So I'm like, oh, I'm running all this, all these miles. I can eat as much as I want, which is not necessarily true, but that's what I like to tell myself anyway. But some people will talk to like a nutritionist or just like other people who have run to talk like, how should I change my diet? And for me personally, it's my body feels good when I eat well. So if I'm going to go if I know I have to run 20 miles tomorrow, I'm not going to, eat an entire pizza and have a couple of beers like the night before I have to wake up and run. You know what I mean? Like I know what's going to make my body feel good and what's going to let my body operate the way, like the best it possibly can for a long run. So diet is important, but I can't say that I follow as strict of a diet plan as others, but it's something to take into consideration. And then I think the biggest thing for me when I started training for New York a couple years ago was I didn't realize, like I said, I think a lot of people think, oh, there's a huge physical requirement, or it's like a lot of work physically when training for a marathon, but it's a big time commitment. And so especially like when the mileage gets higher and, you wake up, you got to work a full day, come home. If you're a parent, I'm not, but if you're a parent, you have kids you need to take care of and make sure they get their homework done. And then suddenly you look, it's 7, 8 o'clock and you still, if you didn't do it in the morning before work, you still have 8, 10 miles to run on a Tuesday. So it's a huge time management piece, which is something I didn't necessarily take into consideration when I first signed up, but it definitely helps kind of make you realize what are my priorities right now. Like I got to get runs in. So what do I need to do to make sure I can get that done? Or who do I need to lean on a little bit more to, see if they can pick up some of my slack when I need to go out and run. So it's a very big, like mental kind of piece to it too, aside from just like the kind of mind over matter when you're actually out there telling yourself like my legs feel like they're about to fall off, but I can do it.
That's it.
So with COVID-19 and this whole pandemic causing the marathon to be delayed till September, how have you stayed in shape and what are some of your routines that you've been doing recently to make sure you're ready for September?
Yeah, good question. So I actually probably end of February, beginning of March, had an old Achilles tendon injury flare up.
Okay.
When I was in high school, playing soccer, I hurt my Achilles tendon and was out, I think, for a couple weeks of the season. And every so often since then, it has flared up. When I ran New York, shin splints was my issue. And when and then running Boston, I like the first couple months of training, I was like, you know what, no shin splints is going to be great. And then all of a sudden my Achilles tendon injury flared up. So I have been using the one silver lining, I guess, of the marathon being postponed is that I actually have time to rehab my injury on my Achilles. And I won't have to, hopefully, right? Like won't have to run on an injury, which I probably would have had to end up doing if it would have been in April as originally scheduled. I think I would have been able to push through it and like manage the injury, but I have the luxury now of being able to make sure that I'm healthy and 100% on race day. So I haven't.
Are you taking care of it?
I am.
Okay. I was about to sound like, but are you?
Yeah. You sound like my mom. She's like,
okay.
So that said, I haven't been running too much since they decided or announced that they would postpone it, just because I decided I would give myself some time to rest and to heal. But I have been trying to focus on kind of strength training. Is something that I noticed I had kind of neglected a little bit more than I would have liked to as I started training in January. Like I said, it gets hard. Like time management is tough. So when it came to deciding, am I going to be able to fit in my run today or get to the gym and do some weights or some, like strength training, like I had to choose the run to make sure I was keeping my mileage up and staying in shape. So now that I'm home all day working from home, I have much more, I have set up kind of like a little home gym with some weights and a yoga mat in my living room. And so like I said, have been really focusing on kind of building up my strength in my legs and in my upper body, so that when it comes time to start training again for the September race, I kind of have that solid base and foundation, which hopefully will kind of eliminate the potential for any further injury later on as I get back into training.
Absolutely. Okay, so thank you for that. I'm gonna break this for 1 second just to kind of play like a quick game with you. Because name brands, I feel like, and sponsorships is such a big deal when it comes to like any kind of sports event. It's just like Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Under Armour, New Balance. I mean, you name them, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So before I even ask you these questions, my 3 points right now are sneakers, what you wear on the bottom, and what you wear on the top. What else should one consider when it comes to attire for running?
Good. So like, you mean like clothes?
Yeah, or like excessive, actually, as I say that, I'm like water bottles.
Yeah, water bottles.
Okay.
Don't they provide you water along the route? So
they do on race day. So they have a water station at every mile, but I think that it slows me down a little bit when I have to kind of stop. That's why I just keep my own water bottle on me. I don't know if that's true. Because the elite people stop and get their water, so I don't know.
Because they're like, I'm gonna fly by anyway.
Maybe they're just like superheroes and they don't actually need water.
Right.
Yeah, so water bottle is good, and then a lot of people will eat like some sort of let's call it energy. So like people will like eat something to eat with them while they're running, right, to like keep their energy levels up.
Okay, so now I have 5 categories, and I'm gonna have you like zoom through this. Okay, so we have sneakers, bottoms, tops, water bottles, and energy bars. So I'm gonna ask you, what you prefer, and I need you to just tell me what your favorite brands are. No sponsorship endorsements through this segment, but I'm just curious. Okay, so this is all in relation to what you do for your workouts and running this marathon. Okay. Best sneaker brands to wear during the marathon.
I use Brooks.
Okay, Brooks. All right. Favorite bottoms type of brand?
Lululemon.
Lululemon, okay. And favorite tops for companies to wear?
Like to run in, you mean?
Yep, to run in, yeah.
I'll probably say Lululemon.
Lululemon too, okay. Water bottle brands?
Oh, I can picture it. I couldn't tell you what the name is though. It's the whatever one I bought. I can't even think of what the name is right now. But
a lot of people are like Swell products are like really good. But I'm like, I don't really know.
Are good. I have a Yeti water bottle, but this is too big to run with, so I can't. I mean, it could be a good arm workout though. I just have like one mindset much bigger than the other one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, and then favorite energy bar or company to go with for that?
I like there's Cliff Bar, like makes these little energy chews. And my favorite flavor is it sounds kind of gross, but it's like margarita flavored.
Margarita?
Ooh. Yeah.
All right, so you still have the drink in there. Awesome. Thank you so much.
I never thought they would make a margarita, I guess, you know.
That's right. I'm like, that just kind of sounds weird. Like,
yeah, it's funny. So I had a friend who ran a marathon before I did, and I asked her, like, what are your favorite kind of things to eat while you're out running? And she was like, I like these Cliff Bar things, but I hate the margarita flavor. She's like, I think it's gross. And I was like, well, I love a margarita. So I'm going to try it and like see how it is. And it tastes pretty good.
What flavor of margarita, though?
It kind of just tastes like lime.
Oh, okay.
Which I think, like, when they get a little warm, they're pretty big. So when they get warm and they're like really chewy, I don't think any of the flavors would be good. So I try to keep them in the refrigerator before I run so that they're a little cooler. But I could see how, like, picture like your least favorite like jelly bean flavor, your least favorite gummy bear flavor, and then imagine it like really warm, so it's like extra chewy, and then imagine eating that while you're running.
Yeah, no.
So,
I understand. But I do want to say I support all marathon runners. I, however, will be cheering for you on the side.
Nice.
And we'll be running like crazy in my mind.
So one of the things that I always hear about is a runner's high and how it's therapeutic for them. Do you have that? And if you do, can you describe it to the audience?
Yeah, that is a great question. It is definitely true. I think that is probably one of the reasons why people who say running is so addictive say that it's addictive. Because like I said, running the New York Marathon was by far like one of the most challenging things physically I've ever done. I don't think I've ever been in that much physical pain. Like I think it was like mile 16 is where the pain, I started to feel the pain. It could have been hurting the whole time, but like that's kind of where I felt it. And I remember thinking to myself, I can't believe I have 10 miles left of this. Like, why did I sign up for this? And then, so I think for me, but like despite the pain, the runner's high that comes with it kind of makes it all worth it. And for me, I think I experienced it like a couple different ways along the way. My family was able to see me, or I was able to see them twice along the marathon route. So I saw them kind of a little bit more than halfway and then closer to the finish line. And before the first time I saw them was one of the points where I was like, I'm starting to get in my head. Like, I don't know if, like, can I do this? Can I really finish this race? Like, what's this going to be like for the next 12 miles or so? And then I saw my family and I heard them cheering, and like, all of a sudden, like everything else was just blocked out. Like nothing hurt anymore. Nothing hurt anymore.
Wow.
And I mean, I just kind of had like chills. I'm not going to lie. Like hugged my mom, and as I ran away, I like started getting teary. But just like, I think one of the cool things about running a marathon is that, like I said, all the people that come out to cheer, and it's really cool when people who you don't know are out there cheering you on. Just like they kind of understand like how, like, maybe they don't, but I'll say as a runner, it's so important to have those people cheering. It's so motivating. And it just kind of, I guess for me, reminds me that, especially the people who are out there for with charity or on behalf of charities, it kind of reminds me that what I'm doing is kind of bigger than myself. So like if you're running for a charity, it's a nice reminder that like you're not just running a race, you're raising awareness for like a very important cause. So I think that kind of plays into the high, is like for charity runners, at least you're doing something that you know is kind of bigger than and greater than yourself, right? Like it's so much more than just crossing the finish line. I think the other piece for me is that running is very much, at least like running a marathon, is very much a it's kind of a sport of one, as far as like, I don't have a team running with me. No one's time at the finish line. No one's ranking is kind of dependent on how well I run or how well I finish. It's all a competition just with myself. So and that's kind of what I've always liked about running, is that it's just me against me, or like me against my mind. Sure, I'll like pick people ahead of me and say like, I want to beat this guy at this point before he gets there, kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's really just me inside my own head, kind of putting my own body to the test and not relying on anyone else, and vice versa. So having gone through the 26 miles and kind of feeling the pain of running 26 miles, once you get to the finish line, like the minute you cross the finish line and it's over, it's hard to explain the feeling, but it's just like this rush. It's a lot. It's kind of a lot of emotions, right? It's like, thank God this thing is finally over. And then you stop running, and then your body just kind of tenses up. So it's like, oh no, like, what did I do? Like, now I'm in so much pain. But then it's also, like I said, it's this huge sense of accomplishment. Again, like remembering that if you're running for charity, that you just accomplished a very big thing for either this organization or these people who are very, very much deserving of the awareness or the money you brought to them. So it's kind of a mix of a lot of different emotions. But I mean, the pain and like the craziness and the early morning to get to a 20-mile run on a Saturday, sacrificing going out with friends the night before because you have to wake up and run early the next morning, are all worth it kind of as soon as you cross the finish line.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as you were talking about the charity element, how much money do you have to raise for the charity?
So it depends based on each charity. There's I think, don't quote me on this, but I would say the average fundraising minimum for the Boston Marathon is somewhere in the ballpark of like $4,000 or $5,000. A lot of charities will have a higher minimum. So I am running the marathon for the Esplanade Association. So if you're familiar with like the Charles River Esplanade in Back Bay, they are a nonprofit who partners with the Department of Conservation and Recreation to maintain that like 3-mile stretch of the Charles River Esplanade, like the banks on the Back Bay side. So everything from managing invasive plant species and putting on free programming for kids and like fitness programming. The Boston Pops 4th of July concert, like that's a partnership with them.
They like movies in the summer.
Exactly. Kind of everything that happens on the Esplanade. From like an activities perspective, community perspective, is largely funded by them. And then, like I said, like the maintenance of the actual park itself. So their fundraising minimum is $8,500. So you can, when you're applying to be part of the team for any of the teams, they will ask you kind of what is your pledge, or how much, if you were to be chosen to run with us, how much money are you committing to raising? And so like I said, it depends on, it's kind of by which organization you're running for. But so some people will, the minimum might be 7,000, but they're pledging to raise 10,000. And that's kind of what you're held to. So even though the minimum is 7,000, if you pledge 10,000, that's what you're committed to. Because then they set up like here's like our overall team commitment. And so they kind of add up however much everyone's committed to. And then that's the organization's goal for the marathon. And so if you pledge or commit to 10,000, you're kind of on the hook for 10,000. But
and what happens if you don't fundraise it? You're paying out of pocket?
They make sure they get you right away. It's like, and I totally get why they do it, right? So like, no, like, I'm not like saying this to be like annoying or whatever, but like, congratulations, you got accepted. Here's how much you are committed to raising. And if you don't, we still need to get this money somehow, because they rely on this money to put on the programming in the case of the Esplanade Association. But for people like Boston Children's Hospital, like that money is put towards research. Like that is money that they cannot
not have.
Yeah. And so if you commit to raising the money, you have to basically come up with a way to get the money. And in some cases, unfortunately, I think that means for people having to pay out of pocket.
Right.
But I will say that in my experience with the Esplanade Association and the organization I ran with in New York, the charities are very good about, if they notice that you're a little bit behind in your fundraising, they will do everything they can to help you reach that minimum, whether it's sharing the word on their social media or websites about fundraisers you have planned. Like they don't want you to fail, right? They want this to be an enjoyable experience for you. So they do everything that they can to make sure that you cross the finish line, and that means, or that includes, raising all of the money. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think if you could just briefly summarize, like what does balance look like for you? I know you've mentioned like it's a sacrifice for you in certain ways, right? Like what you're eating, hanging out with your friends, etc. But like, what does balance in fact look like for you in fundraising now, right? This 8,000. What did you pledge? If you don't mind me asking.
9,000.
You pledged 9,000. So having pledged, did you raise that already?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. We should have talked about that. Like, what did you do? Yeah. But in pledging, right, and like to raise a certain amount of money and like making sure that people actually contribute to that, and going to work, I'd imagine, and like balancing like your social life and eating, like what does balance look like for you, training to do something like this? And now, as you shared earlier, having your Achilles and all of that, like what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah.
Take into account.
Yeah. I mean, this times are a little interesting right now, so I won't use the last couple of weeks as an example, but I think, training, if I like think about my plan, I have runs or like scheduled runs like 4 to 5 times a week, with Saturday being my longest run of the week. So it's like if it's I think it's Monday run, Tuesday there's like a cross training day built in there, and then there's one day of kind of rest, so like you don't do anything, and that's typically the day before your long run. But so if you're looking at like my week from Monday to Sunday, I have some sort of physical training happening, well, like I said, whether it's running or cross training, every day except for Friday, which is the day before the long run. So I'll wake up, get ready in the morning, like whatever, eat my breakfast. I set my alarm every day to wake up at 5 a.m., but I always end up snoozing it. So I always have to end up doing my runs at the end of the day, but the intention is there to run in the morning. But so like I said, I'll go to work, come home, and then I'll get my run in like right from work, or go to the gym right from work. So I try not to come home until I've done my run, because it's easy for me, at least, to get home, sit on the couch just to rest for 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes becomes a couple hours, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I didn't get my run in today, right? So a lot of times I'll run on my lunch break. If the run is short enough, I'll run on my lunch break, so that way I can get that done while I'm at work, and then I have the whole evening when I get home after work. Or like I said, I will run like from my office, get my run in, come back, pick up my stuff, and then head home. So that's been, I work right in Back Bay, so there's a lot, like I run along the Esplanade, like on both sides of the river. So there's a lot of places for me to run, which makes it easier. But definitely, like, I think the biggest thing is, for me, has been like trying to get those runs in kind of before I get home to settle down for the night, or give myself a chance to get home and settle down for the night. And then I think, people, at least in Boston, like I said, people love the marathon, and it's at the risk of, sounding like I'm tooting my own horn. It's a huge accomplishment, right? To run 26.2 miles. So when people find out that you're running the marathon or a marathon, people are excited for you. And like, they also want to see you do well, want to see you succeed. And they're excited to watch you. So I think from like a balancing social life with training perspective, my friends totally get it when I say, you know, I can't come out on a Friday night, or I can only come out for, you know, an hour or two, but I'm not going to have a drink, whatever it is. I'll be home by this time. They totally get it because they know I'm training for a race, and they, you know, they, like I said, they want me to do well. So I haven't actually found that like balancing my social life is too difficult. But like I said, there are times when you have to just like sacrifice a night out. And you know, you can choose not to. It just makes running 20 miles the next morning a lot less fun than it already is.
Right.
My last question for you, Agent, I had. So you run the marathon. What does recovery look like once that marathon is ran? And, you know, do you take the week off from work or anything like that? And what do you do to recover and make sure your body is still in good shape and working after running all those miles?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple things. I think a big part of recovery is your training. So like making sure, like I said, getting like weight training and cross training is like a huge part of training for a race like a marathon. I would say you probably use every muscle in your body when you're running a marathon at some point. So like when you get further down into the race, you're halfway through, your body starts to, you feel like you want to hunch over, you're going to fall over. Like you're using like your, you know, for example, your core to make sure you're standing straight up. So you're really, I mean, you're using, so it behooves someone training for a marathon to make sure that they're not just training their legs and the kind of like from a cardio perspective, but really making sure they're building like a solid foundation for the race. But then also that helps kind of prevent injury, so that after the race is done, you're not having to nurse injury for weeks at a time. So I think kind of step one of that recovery is just making sure you're doing your due diligence and stretching during training, and you know, and kind of like I said, building that solid foundation leading up to the race. And then post race, you're inevitably going to be sore. Your body, I don't know how natural it is for someone to run 26.2 miles at once, right? Like, I don't know that our bodies are built to do that, but so you're gonna be in a little bit of pain when the race is done. I think the biggest thing for me was stretching, you know, as cliche as that might sound, but like stretching kind of right away. And then I've found that staying moderately active kind of in the days following the race has helped. So instead of finishing the race and then kind of slaying on my couch and resting for the next couple of days, I'll try to go out and go for a walk just to make sure that I'm, you know, staying loose and things, so things don't kind of tighten up, right? And then as far as like taking time off from work, I think I took like one day off last year. And I'll probably do the same this year. It'll take like a day, maybe 2 days off. I really did it because my family was in town, not even for like recovery's sake. Wow. I did it just because my family was here or in New York. So I wanted to spend some time with them before I had to come back to work. But, you know, if someone wanted to take a week off of work after they ran, I would say they earned it. So I'll probably take a day or two off when I run the marathon in September. But I think like for me, it's just like staying like I said, moderately active, making sure I'm putting in the work and doing the training like before the race to make sure I don't get hurt or to prevent injury as much as possible. And then stretching. I mean, it sounds like duh, that's so obvious. Like, why wouldn't you stretch? But a lot of people don't, or a lot of people don't stretch well enough. And so stretching is definitely important.
Awesome. My last question, thank you so much for all of that insight too, and just your experience and training beforehand, during, even after, all of that, as far as like that mental state of mind to really get you through it. You kind of mentioned, you know, that your family was there for you like in New York. My last question to you is, you know, as an individual part of the Latinx community, how much of an impact has your culture had on on your mental stability, even like as a marathon runner, if anything at all, and like that experience, like have you been able to tie in your culture into being a marathon runner at all? What does it look like?
That is a great question. I love that question. I'll be honest and say I haven't given it too much, like hadn't given that piece a lot of thought before now. But as you were kind of talking about, like how has your culture kind of influenced your experience running? I think being part of the Latinx community, it's kind of in our DNA to be hardworking people. A lot of people of color will, unfortunately have to work harder than non-people of color, right? And if you just, for whatever, not to get political, but for whatever reasons that may be, like that's just kind of the way things are. And so I have, my grandfather is an immigrant from Mexico, came over from Mexico when he was young. He, worked, multiple jobs all his life to make sure that his family was set up for success in the best way that he could. He, even after he retired, he went back to work and continued to work until he became semi-retired before finally retiring, and is now very much deserved in enjoying his retirement. But I think I would probably say that's the the biggest thing is I've just always been told to, that I should and can chase my dreams and kind of do whatever I want, but it's not just going to be handed to me. Like I have to work for it. And one of my mentors growing up said, the best piece of advice she ever gave me was there's plenty of room at the bottom, which is kind of to say, if you want to do something and settle for the bare minimum, go right ahead. There's plenty of space there, right? Like, but if you want there are far fewer seats at the top because of how much work it takes to get there. So by all means, if you just want to take a seat and show up, go for it. There's you can do that. But if you want to take one of those the coveted seats that everyone wants, it's going to take a lot to get there. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, if I had to think kind of on the spot, is just coming from a community that is kind of hardworking because they have to be, but also, like I said, I think that's just kind of in our DNA as a member, like I said, the Latinx community, but also just like people of color. And so I think if I had to give an answer, that's probably what it would be. And so like as I run, things get tough. I like to think there are, like, I'll use my grandfather as an example, but like when I'm out on the course and things are rough, he, for the lack of finding a better, like more eloquent way to put it, but he had it much harder than I did, and he came out on top. So if he can do that, if he could come to the United States with very little and make this life for himself and his family, I can get through 26.2 miles. It's going to be easy, but if he can do that, I can most definitely cross that finish line.
That's it. Thank you so much, AJ. I appreciate it. Truly, thank you. We always like to end off our show by having our celebrity guests share where people can stay in contact with them or continue to support them. I know you said you've already fundraised your pledged amount, but is that, if it's still live, like sharing where somebody can support and contribute if you're interested in that, and then where people can follow you and continue to cheer you on throughout the marathon? Yeah.
So I'll give you my Instagram handle is AJ_Hernandez. So it's AJ_HERNANDEZ. I'm probably the most active on Instagram. I have like Facebook and Twitter, but I would say I'm probably the most active, at least from like a fundraising and kind of chronicling my marathon experience on Instagram. So AJ_Hernandez. And then I actually have a link to my fundraising page in my bio, and I'll keep it there until the race is over. But if folks would like to donate, very much appreciated. But if folks just kind of want to follow along or have questions about running a marathon, feel free to, my DMs are always open. I'm always here to chat. I like talking to people. So even if you just want to say, hey, awesome. I'm here for it. So
great. And what number are you? Do you already know your number for the marathon?
I don't have my bib number yet.
Okay.
But
awesome. Well, thank you so much, AJ. Truly, it was a great pleasure to hear from you, learning so much about the marathon. For any of you who are out there, as AJ said, there's not a stereotypical type of person to run. If it's something that you're truly committed to doing, or there may be a stereotypical type of person actually that one might think qualifies you to run. But if you're interested in doing it, do it, right? Go for it. Start training.
Yeah.
Talk to the people in the community to support you. Different apps and resources and links are available to get you through that process. It's certainly a mind over matter type of situation. AJ, again, wishing you the best of luck in your run in Boston for the very first time. Really, again, to all of you who are out there and to those of you who are more elite and have been doing this for quite some time, continue to make it happen and break your own records. And to those of you who are just getting started, you got to start somewhere. And so we wish you the best of luck. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Urban Collective Show Marathon Edition.
All right.
Thank you, AJ.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good evening.
Yes, and we'll be in touch. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Collective, as you can see, that was AJ, and I want to thank him again and Other Bernardine's words about coming onto the show and telling us about what it takes to be a marathon runner and all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I didn't know there was a certain amount of money you had to raise. I knew they had to raise the money, but I didn't know you had to stick to that. So that's very good to know about that. But that was our show for this evening. And of course, Bernardine, let people know where they can follow us.
Yes. So if you are looking to follow the Urban Collective Show, which I'm sure you are if you aren't already, we are at the Urban Collective Show on Instagram, at the Urban Collective Show on Facebook. I'm always terrible with this. TUC 3? Yeah.
I don't know.
On Twitter. You're right. You don't even know either. We're on Twitter. Find us the Urban Collective. All jokes aside, though, thank you all for tuning in. We are on every single platform, though: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can really tune into us on SoundCloud, on iTunes, on Spotify. For this particular segment, we will always be here Tuesdays at 7 for the most part, unless we say otherwise, on YouTube Live and Facebook Live. So thank you so much. It's Bernstein Truth checking out.
Yeah, and like always, we always want to end the show with a motivational quote. So this week, the quote goes like this: no matter what happens, no matter how far you seem to be away from where you want to be, never stop believing that you will somehow make it. Have an unrelenting belief that things will work out, that the long road has a purpose, that the things that you desire may not happen today, but they will happen. Continue to persist and persevere. That was from Brad Gast. So on that note, we are out. Catch you guys next week. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's your man NIC.
It's your girl Bernadine Truth.
Later. Peace.
Bye.